everyone, I'm Emma Maslen. I am the CEO of inspir'em and welcome to this webinar today. This is going to be the first in our series that we're going to be running on pipeline generation planning that's going to be running until Easter. We've got 6 sessions for you that are going to be running over this period, and we're going to be talking about everything from territory planning, account planning, pipeline reconciliation plans, and how to get customers to convert into opportunities. Today, we're going to be specifically talking about execution, cadence, and how you can get started by putting execution into your weekly diary, making sure that you're allocating the time and driving that pipeline. So it's going to be a mix of presentation and questions today. First of all, what I'm going to do is talk you through some of the material that we have on pipeline generation planning, and then I'm going to open it up for questions. So if you have got any questions today, please do put it in the Q&A. We'll also we'll be monitoring that, and also Lucy will be posting some interesting materials for you to have a look at, which are going to be in the chat. So let's get straight to the material then. So hopefully you should see my screen where you'll be seeing the pipeline reconciliation, pipeline generation planning presentation. So let's get into it. So as I mentioned, this is the first in the series that we're going to be running. Today we're going to be talking about goals and planning and making sure that you're thinking about leading indicators and weekly activities as you start your year, and really be thinking about your pipeline generation and execution activity for the year. As we go through the next 12 weeks, we'll be picking up all of these different topics. What we'll also be doing is we have generated a pipeline generation planning course for you, which the first part of that is going to drop in your libraries on Tuesday of next week with some assets, and also a recording of this video as well, so that you know that you can follow up and have a look at the materials again. And if you've got any questions, then please do let us know. So the next webinar will be in 2 weeks. All of the webinars will be at the same time, so hopefully you'll be able to join us for more of the sessions. So what we're going to be talking about in pipeline generation planning. Well, this is how we think about pipeline generation planning and the tools that we need to build that plan for the year and keep things consistent. As we go through the series, we'll be talking a little bit about your personal goals and how you get to attainment. But also we'll be picking up some of the technicalities of the activities that you need to be running around things like territory planning, account planning, focusing on ideal customer profile. We'll also be talking about the mechanism of a pipeline reconciliation plan. How do you build out that plan? How do you make sure that you're focused on the right opportunities? And then we'll be talking about cookbooks and leading indicators. So how do you drive that weekly activity around execution and making sure that you're delivering that pipeline creation progress? Then we'll also be talking about the data, that really dull thing that all salespeople love to talk about, which is updating the CRM, using some of our tools, and also making sure that we have that really important weekly review to make sure that you're executing as you'd expect to execute on your pipeline. Specifically today, though, we are going to talk about that weekly review and making sure that you're picking up the progress. And the reason why we're going to be talking about that specific subject is it feels always like at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of planning that happens on pipeline generation, pipeline reconciliation. And the real execution of pipeline generation doesn't really get started until we're a few weeks into the new year. The reality is, though, the earlier that we start this, the better Q1 we will have and the better consistency we'll have around pipeline through the year. So what we're going to talk today about is how you can really make sure you get yourself started and give yourself some weekly goals to get that execution off the ground. So why are we going to talk about that? Well, the reality is the more we put into the top of the funnel, the more we're going to close at the bottom of the funnel. The more opportunities we work on consistently and that we drive those through the funnel in terms of progression and also qualification, and then through closure, we'll also then be closing out more opportunity. In contrast, though, if we have a much smaller set of activity at the top, then that is going to drive a smaller funnel for us. And that generates a particular challenge for us around the fact that we don't have choice around the pipeline that we're trying to close. And often we try and force things through the pipeline because we don't have enough coverage to cover our forecast. So the lesson here is really, and the best practice is to be thinking about the more you consistently drive the top of the funnel, the better off you're going to be at the bottom of the funnel. Now, we also need to be very cognizant of making sure that we don't drive too much at the top of the funnel in one particular period. Often at the beginning of Q1, we start stuffing our pipeline with lots of opportunity, but we don't have the capacity to keep that funnel in the right shape, make sure that we're progressing and qualifying. And often, by the time we get into Q3, a lot of the opportunity that we've generated in Q1, we close out because we've not seen the traction. And possibly that is often because we run out of capacity as salespeople. We can only do so many meetings at one time, and we have to make sure that we are allowing for consistent pipeline generation in our weeks, consistent meetings within our weeks, and also doing the reviews to see how we can improve conversion. So be thinking about what is the shape of your funnel and try to keep that consistent. Don't try and do too much pipe gen or you're going to not try and do too little pipe gen, but try and force pipe gen into a particular shape. It will always take this form because of the way that capacity works in a sales organization. So this is why we need to have a consistent plan and be driving that execution week over week. Now, what we would like to have is a pipeline reconciliation plan. And as we talk over the coming weeks, we'll be talking about how you put one of these together. This is an industry best practice around putting together a spider diagram where you have your goals slightly off right center. You then start to build out existing accounts and new accounts. You start thinking about segmentation. You think about the accounts that you have. Where are all of the divisions? Where are the opportunities? Where can you go? Now, a pipeline reconciliation plan should be an all-encompassing piece of work. It is a plan. It's usually in a Miro or a Lucid chart. And it's a art of the possible situation. So this is what we're thinking about in terms of where we're going to go. Having it as a spider diagram is usually a great way to go because it can be done quite quickly. Beautiful isn't required. Functional is required when we're thinking about pipeline reconciliation planning. And the reason why I mention that is because as early as possible, we want to get into what are the key metrics that we can drive execution to be able to start working that funnel. So week over week, how many contacts is it going to take us to get those opportunities? How many accounts would we drive that in? How much pipeline would that give us? Qualified opportunities, etc., through to that closure. And if we have that plan in place, we don't want to spend too long creating it, but really important that we have that. Then week on week, we can keep going back to that plan and saying, right, where have we been? What opportunities have we driven? Now, I will be taking questions as we go through the webinar today. And so please do put your question in the Q&A and then I'll come to it shortly. If you have any other questions outside of the session today, then please do drop me an email. Now, for us to consistently drive this pipeline, it's important that we have this in our diaries and we diarise the time when we're going to do specific outreach to customers. Now, many organisations have one day a week, which is dedicated to pipeline generation. Over the years, I feel like the best practice for me is do a little bit every day. It feels like it's less of a burden to be able to do that. And it means also you can do the follow-up because pipeline generation isn't just about that first outreach. It's about the consistent follow-up with customers. LinkedIn say that it takes about 12 touches of value to get a stranger to want to talk to you if there's no referral that's in place. So if you think about that, you're going to have to consistently push messages into customers to get them to meet with you if they're targets that you really want to meet with. Now, what you'll also see on this diary as well is that on Fridays, it's really important that we have a review. So what have you done this week? What's the progress that you've made? What's the execution that you've delivered? And what's been your progress? What's been your achievement from that? How many meetings have you managed to book? How many contacts have you managed to connect with? The reason why we need to track that progress is because what you'll see here is conversion is actually really low. So pipeline generation is a bit of a grind. There is a lot of hard work that is required to get it done, particularly for new business. It is very, very much a hard work game. But the more we get ready to push pipeline generation and push that execution, get ourselves in the mindset of doing that, the better it will be. So then the reason why we're then thinking about this is because as part of our pipeline generation plan, pipeline reconciliation plan, what we will also do is we will sort of build out those maths to say, well, what does our conversion need to be? So if we want to target an application development opportunity, for example, in Google Ads, well, what is the level of contacts that we're going to need to be able to go and drive that conversion? We'll talk a little bit later about tips and tricks for conversion as well. So we've talked a lot today about thinking about those leading indicators, those weekly reviews, those sorts of things. There's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot to consume. So we have a little gift for you that we're just going to mention on the webinar today. So as of next Tuesday, you are going to have a new course that's going to pop into your library. So you'll have either the Medic or MedPick course, and you maybe have the Leader course as well, and you'll have a pipeline generation planning course. What you'll see in that course is you will see a new video. So there's one video in there, it's 20 minutes long, that talks about some of the pipeline planning, pipeline reconciliation points, and also some assets on pipeline planning as well. So the idea of this is really just to get you started and have you thinking about how do you kickstart your year? Yes, we need to do the planning, but yes, we need to do some execution as well. Now, for some of you that are not running a calendar year, this just gives you an opportunity to pick up some of that cadence throughout the year as well. Perhaps you don't have enough pipeline for your Q3, Q4. Perhaps you need to be thinking about ideas to generate some pipeline for next year. So go in, have a look. We'd love to hear your feedback. So have a look at the assets and hopefully you'll find those useful. And as we go through the coming weeks, what we will then do is we'll then keep releasing new content to you so that you can pick up some of those additional best practices. So key takeaways from the content that I have for you today. So firstly, we will be needing you to build out a plan. Absolutely. Build out a PRP, work on the art of the possible, and be thinking about how do you get started and start generating some opportunity? It needs to be a good plan, but a plan that you work on and adapt and build on over time. What you don't need to do is spend loads of time on it and then do no execution. It has to be a living and breathing plan. So start to build out your plan, but also start thinking about some goals as well. Be smart about your goals. What would you like to achieve week over week in terms of new contacts, new divisions, new companies that you're targeting? So be thinking about that as well. And finally, be thinking about regularly reviewing your progress and against your plan as well. What have you done? What have you not done? What have you generated? What contacts have you managed to engage with so that you can see where you're making progress and where you're not making progress. So make sure you build in that regular review. So what I'll do now is I'll just go to some questions. I've got lots of questions that have come into the chat. So let's just go through those just now. So one of the questions we have is, how do you keep morale up in pipeline generation activity? Well, it's a great question because pipeline generation, as I've mentioned, is hard and it is a grind. So one of the things that I certainly deployed when I was at SAP Concur and also at BMC was we had pipeline generation days where we did that as a team. We got all of the different departments involved, marketing, pre-sales, customer success, etc. Everybody got together and we did outreach and trying to work with customers, get them to events, do different things and try and make those days fun. So we had lots of competitions. We usually had some product chats, some best practices, some win stories, all of those sorts of things. And they're a great day to just keep the energy high on pipeline generation and just, have a bit of fun, learn something and get out to your customers. So that's certainly something that I would strongly recommend. Hannah's come in with a question and she's mentioned about territory planning. What is the advice around how many accounts you should have at any one time that you're outreaching to once you've done that initial territory and ICP segmentation? So my recommendation on that would be you'll probably say you've got 10, 50 accounts in your territory. You probably really can only cope with about 10 at any one time in terms of the research you need to do, the personas that you need to focus on, and then doing the actual outreach itself. So I would suggest going with about 10 and then through your weekly reviews, not weekly cycling them out, but through your weekly reviews, what you should then do is be thinking about replacing those accounts within the reviews. So make sure that do 10 really well, keep reaching out. And then as you need to, maybe cycle some out that you're not getting any traction with and try some other accounts. Important that you do that thoroughly. That process probably takes about 6 to 8 weeks. Very important that you sort of go through that process. And so Harry's come in with a question as well. Hi, Harry. Lovely to see you here. Just asking a question about that Team PG day and asking about, how do they work and, has that always been a good source of pipeline? To be honest, they've always been great fun, but also I think the smart salespeople are the ones that do their homework before. So they come in with a list already. They've probably done some pre-work. They've probably reached out to some customers as well. They've made sure that they've got everything all lined up. So when they actually get to the day and the prizes are given and the leaderboards are put up, whatever, they're already halfway there. But I do think the days are really valuable for consistently injecting energy into what is it is a long-term activity that needs to be done, and it's hard work. So let's just make sure that we keep pushing that. A couple of other questions that have come in. We've got a question from somebody that says, how do you balance new business and existing customers? When existing customers take a lot of your time, how do you then focus on the new business? Well, it's just important to segment the time. That's why the diary is really important. There will always be things to do with existing customers. Of course, there will, but it is a comfortable place for us to go. New business is uncomfortable. It's hard. It takes a lot of time and effort. So we need to make sure that we're doing that as much as we're doing the existing customers as well. So segment your time, segment your pipeline reconciliation plan about the activities and the places that you're going to go. Please make sure that you do that because then you'll focus on the right things. Your conversion will be different for new business and existing customers. Just understand that. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. But I can guarantee you this, if you don't reach out to those new business customers, you won't get any new business pipeline. So really important that we prioritize that opportunity. I had a question as well about the timing, about the 12 touches. Like, how does that work? What sort of timing would we recommend? My suggestion on that is it depends on the level of the person that you're reaching out to and what you're reaching out to them with. So remember that the 12 touches have to be 12 touches of value. So you should be sending white papers, events, something that's valuable to them. You should think about what you're going to send. You could probably standardize that. I'm not going to say automate, but you should standardize that so you know what you're reaching out to people with. Weekly feels like that's possibly as much as you'd want to be. You definitely don't want to be doing it more frequently than weekly. If it's a CXO, it's probably less. You need to be finding ways to get referrals in if you can. And actually, that leads me on to another question that's come in, which is what is the best way to pipeline generate? 100%. If your customers are ambassadors for you in the industry and they are talking about you and they're introducing you to their friends and their peers in the industry, you will get significantly higher conversion on that than if you're just banging the phones. So we need to be smart about our research. Who do our customers know? Who could they refer to us? We need to make sure that we're building champions, long-standing champions in the industry, and they're then pushing us out to the right people in the industry. So if you can, referrals would absolutely be the best place to go. Okay. So, and then one final question that we had, which was about how do you manage if you've got big deals or if it's end of quarter and you're thinking about pipeline generation, or frankly not thinking about pipeline generation because you're so busy? Well, I've always felt that pipeline generation at the end of a quarter is very possible. You're in opportunities, you're talking to customers. There's no better place to talk about more opportunity than when you're talking in an opportunity because customers are a little bit unguarded with their information because they know that they're working on something with you. So definitely pipeline generate in existing opportunities. The other thing I would say as well is at the end of the quarter, there is a lot of dead time. There's a lot of waiting time for legal, procurement, etc. Have your pipeline reconciliation plan there, start working on it, thinking about where you're going, snatch some time. When it's dead time, think about snatching some time and get some of that pipeline generation done. So hopefully that's given you some food for thought today on pipeline generation and thinking about how you can get started for the year and, some new ideas. We will be putting together a Slido to hear some feedback from the session today. So please do pop some information in there. And just a reminder again that our next webinar is going to be in 2 weeks, and we're going to be talking about how do you put your personal objectives into your pipeline reconciliation plan to keep you motivated throughout the year, because pipeline is the very beginning of what you'll then achieve. We cannot achieve anything as salespeople or in the go-to-market space without that pipeline. So we need to make sure we keep ourselves energized and invigorated to keep closing out that pipeline. So we'll be talking about that in 2 weeks. But do look out for the drop that's going into your libraries on Tuesday. And if you do have any questions about any of the material today or any follow-up questions, then please do come back to me and let me know. I'm Emma at inspir'em.coach, or please feel free to contact us at customer support at inspir'em.coach. And I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.